Are there reciprocal interactions between sexuality and personality psychology? A common goal in all psychological studies involves the interpretation of significant commonalities and differences amongst individuals. Two significant differences were narrowed down to be found in all individuals. These included lexical abilities and personality types. A study investigating the neuropsychological profile of all forms of sexuality interestingly found a significant stored difference in lexical semantic monitoring tasks between individual groups. This finding is significant in the differences found among sexuality in a neurobiological factor. As lexical abilities was noted as one of the major differences amongst individuals, this would be an interesting point of research to look into sexuality and the differences found amongst major personality types. Personality psychology has been circulating into sexuality studies more recently and has held merit as an interesting viewpoint that could lead to a breakthrough in understanding individuals better. A societal shift has occurred within the last decade to acknowledge sexuality and its complexity. An investigation into the link between personality types and sexuality could be as significant as the lexical differences found in the Weggessen 1998 study. So what is sexual orientation? Sexual orientation can be defined as an enduring pattern of emotional, romantic, and/or sexual attractions to men, women, or both sexes. In sum, the suggestion that human sexual desires are enmeshed with his or her total personality is in fact truly possible. This research aims to identify the links between personality and sexuality. On this slide, we have the four major theories of sexuality. The first theory is the evolutionary theory. This theory refers to sexuality as a genetic makeup to an individual's hormone levels and focuses more on DNA. One major theory in evolutionary theory includes the focus on prenatal sex hormones on an individual's sexuality and the major role of androgenic hormones. The second theory includes the psychosexual theory. This revolves around the findings of Sigmund Freud and his perspective on sexuality, which includes sexual abnormalities that arise during the psychosexual stages. The third theory is the social learning theory. This incorporates the case that social or environmental factors have a greater influence on an individual's sexual identity. And finally, there is the personality theory. This theory revolves around individual personality traits that generate consistent behaviors across situations. The main personality traits that are found in the Big Five that have been found in past research to be directly related to sexuality. In all of these theories, the personality theory has been the least looked into, and this holds a big gap in the research of sexuality and the possibilities of links between personality. So the question is the personality theory being overlooked in terms of sexuality? So personality is viewed as an internal state of an individual that leads to the person to respond in certain ways. These internal states hold power over an individual's life and their surroundings. The theories of personalities have looked into many different possibilities of personality types and their influence on an individual's sexuality. Over the years, psychologists have identified numerous personality factors that are important for understanding sexuality. In regards to sexuality, nature versus nurture is always an element to consider. Theoretically, an individual's personality is shaped by two broad influences, and that is genetic and societal. The fact that sexuality and personality both incorporate genetic and social elements, it has been suggested that personality varies across sexual identity and gender through a combination of both these influences. So here we have the big 5 personality traits and their direct associations with sexual behavior. So we have openness, conscientiousness, agreeableness, extroversion, and neuroticism. Out of these 5 factors, extroversion and agreeableness have been the most consistently related to sexual behavior, although all 5 of them have direct links to sexual behavior. Another personality trait that will be the major focus of this study is sociosexuality. This refers to a person's willingness to have sex in the absence of commitment and without an emotional connection to one's partner. Persons with what is known as restricted sociosexual orientation require feelings of closeness to a partner before having sex and tend to seek out more long-term. There have been major links between sociosexuality amongst homosexuals and the big 5 traits of openness and extroversion. These links lead to a further investigation into the traits of sociosexuality amongst same-sex relations. These findings are very interesting in the sense of there are a link between a personality trait and sexual relations, and this form of sociosexuality will be the main point of this research. As with all studies, there are always issues in conducting these studies, and with personality there are quite a few. So the personality perspective is appealing to many psychologists who study sexual behavior, but it does hold its own limitations. For one thing, some of the personality scales used to measure appear to measure attitudes more than traits. This calls into question whether we are actually measuring personality in general. In addition, it seems to be the case that some personality effects may be accounted for by genetics. Thus, the key factor here is really keeping one personality intact. As with all studies, there are always issues. Here I've provided the references that I've used in this presentation and that I will be using in the future research proposal. Thank you so much for listening, and